we'll see how this kind of works out tonight. These trainings are a collaboration between the United Way Success by Six and Parents as Teachers. So we're going to have multiple perspectives here tonight, a parent perspective, a child care provider perspective, maybe foster care, parent perspective, maybe grandparent perspective. And that's kind of our goal. Our goal is, with Parents as Teachers, to empower parents to be their child's first and best teacher. Our goal for you all as child care providers is to equip you with the knowledge and information that helps you be great care providers for children. And this is a topic that can be a little tricky. So we're talking tonight about mom knows best, or does she? And then I thought about, well, who's really the mom anyway? So depending on what our life trajectory has been, sometimes a person becomes a mother before she's actually left the house. So then, there isn't a clear role of who's the mom and who's the grandma. That's never really been defined. No break has ever been established. And that makes it really, really tricky. So we're going to be able to talk about some of those things tonight. As I was preparing, though, I was thinking major issues, and y'all can help me with these. So what are the hot button issues between generations that kind of tend to cause a little bit of conflict between my way, your way? Oh, you can't read these colors. Sleeping, that says hot button issues. Sleeping, feeding, nurturing, disciplining. Anybody else think of like a major issue off the top of your head that is kind of between generations? Are those kind of top? Those are pretty much the top ones. Yeah. Well, and all of these issues are personal. All of these issues are somewhat reliant on the current research. And research is something that's always changing. So something that we as humans tend to do is we think that the way we did it is the right way to do it. But the way we did it is not the right way. The way we did it was the best way we could do it for what we knew at that time and who we were at that time. Just like when our parents or our children become parents, they're doing the best they can at that time for their ability with their information. So sleeping. Let's just think about how babies used to sleep. So I'm going to go back, 30, 40, maybe 50 years ago. Sleeping. Babies slept on their belly. They slept alone in their crib, typically on their belly. Bumper pads, all kinds of stuff, all in the crib. Nowadays, on the back. Oh, that's boring. Well, they can't sleep. Well, just put that baby on its belly. Then it'll sleep. But everything is telling the current generation, no, you're not going to sleep your baby on its belly. So who are we as the older adults to tell them what we did and what's going to work? Because you turned out all right. You didn't die, did you? Well, our job is to support the information that's already there and ultimately to support the parent. So now they sleep on the back. There's usually a swaddle that has to do with sleeping nowadays. And nothing. The crib, is totally just like empty, right? Nothing there. And so we might think, different generations might think that's boring or, they need more stimulation. We're talking about sleep here. We're not talking about play. Hi, Miss Maggie. So feeding. So I was born in 1966. And so what my mom tells me is that at that time, people did not breastfeed because formula was really new and up and coming, and it was the best thing for babies. This is what the billboards told them. This is what the medical journals told them. This is what the doctors told them. This is the best. This is superior to breast milk. So what did we all have? We all had a bottle. And then since sleep is really important to all of us, let's put cereal in that bottle as soon as possible because we want to fill up to that baby's tummy, and then the baby's going to sleep. Well, it kind of makes sense from like a logical perspective, you know, the baby's tummy full, but it really doesn't make sense from a scientific perspective. So now, breastfeed, no food, I think this is the current information, no food until 6 months. We were putting cereal in bottles and definitely food by 4 months, if not 2 months, if not 2 weeks. Just put cereal in the bottle and they'll sleep all night, right? So now we're concerned about allergies. We want to preserve the immune system. We want to build the immune system of the child. So we're breastfeeding, been pretty much breastfeeding exclusively till about 6 months. Is that? Yep. Okay, y'all gonna you tell me what people are hearing, because this is what I think is what people are hearing nowadays. So now I'm going to make some assumptions here, and just know that I'm making loose assumptions. I'm not labeling any certain generation, but just trying to do a comparison. So nurture. Well, don't get that baby up when it cries, because you're going to spoil the baby. Well, that was then. That was then. This is now. So what is now? You can't spoil a baby. Like, you're talking 6 months, maybe 12 months before we're really talking about spoiling a baby. Manipulated behavior, like a child's not enough of a planner to manipulate their behavior and say, I just want to get on her nerves, so I'm going to cry and cry until she picks me up out of the bed. There's a reason why we communicate, and we, as we get older, communicate with words, but babies can't communicate with words. So nowadays, where it's like, you can't spoil a baby, love the baby, nurture the baby. And did you all know that they used to actually call mothers refrigerator mothers, this cold in quotation marks? They, in the 1950s and 60s, when people were beginning to learn more about autism, but really not understanding it scientifically, they blamed kids with autism on caregivers who were bland, who were cold, who like had no low affect. But guess what? You could have a super animated mother who had a child with autism, and it had not a thing to do with how that child was cared for. It had to do with the genetic makeup of the child. So we're not creating our children into somebody with a developmental disability. We're loving our children for whoever they are, and it's our job to figure out, who is this kid? What makes them tick? When do they get overstimulated? What can I do to help the child? But we just found that fascinating. If you know Temple Grandin, if you've ever heard of that name, she's an author who's now in her 60s. She has autism, and she had a mother who completely bucked the system, and every doctor who told her it was her fault, her child had autism. And so Temple Grandin is the child who became this adult who is just an incredible researcher and has done a lot for animal psychology, animal practices in our country of humane treatment of animals, particularly animals before they go to a slaughter. So she completely redesigned the way cattle are like fed into like their slaughter chamber in a circular pattern. And what she said is because of her unique abilities, because she had autism, was that she was able to see the world differently and see the world in a way that maybe animals could, if they're much more like sensory, rather than we're so visual and verbal, but animals aren't. So the way that they can perceive the world, so she actually was really quite a revolutionary. But her mom was blamed for her condition. So that's not it. So we know now we can't spoil a baby, but how often do we say that? Oh, gotta spoil that baby. Put that baby down. Let the baby learn to sleep all night. Baby's gonna cry. So you know what really teaches empathy? Now a big emphasis is on these, what they call like soft skills. Soft skills, when we think of people being marketable for a job, you want hard skills, which are a skill, and you want soft skills, like hard skills are like a skill like you can do, like I know how to hammer a nail. And a soft skill is, I actually know how to get along with people. I know what it means to be part of a workplace. I know what it means to be a member of a family. So parental engagement, when we nurture our kids and respond to our kids, we're actually teaching them empathy and perspective taking. That, oh, I am not the center of the universe, and maybe somebody else thinks differently than I do. And that is really quite okay. So our nurturance of a child, rather than creating a child that's a spoiled brat, actually teaches them a skill in their people abilities, their human interaction ability. So disciplining, I had all kinds of issues with my parents about disciplining our kids, because my dad kept saying to me, you just need to spank him. So our son was challenging at times, like all kids can be, and his advice was, you just have to spank him. And we were not choosing to spank, and that caused a little conflict between us. So, show them who's in charge. I mean, children can be taught like the right way to do it. You teach them this is what they're supposed to do. Yes, we teach them what they're supposed to do. Well, while we're teaching them, we're also honoring them. When you dishonor a child because you parent in such a way that you're the boss, what are you teaching them? You're teaching them to fear. You're teaching them that there's only one right way to do things. That doesn't create innovators and problem solvers and engineers and people who actually do things that we want to create in our country. So if you've thought about parenting styles, this is hard to see. There's what we call an authoritarian, like the authoritarian, authoritative parenting. And more, now apparently they got this new phrase called free-range parenting. Have you guys heard of free-range parenting? I don't know really what the definition of that is.
Sounds like chickens.
It sounds like chickens.
It's like off the grid parenting. People that stay home with their kids, they raise their own cattle, they raise their own food.
When I heard free range, it's more in terms of like if parents who are able to take their kids to, like, if you go to the park and the kid is just playing at the park, not necessarily the parent who's not there, but the one who's not helping go up this ride.
Okay.
So letting the kids play more independently and not.
They kind of do like a back seat.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
They watch them do it.
They watch them do it.
But they will interject.
Okay. So maybe that's kind of like a fourth parenting style. When I was kind of learning about this, the third style was the permissive parenting style. And I didn't know if permissive was like free range, but it doesn't sound like it at all. So the permissive one is, the one that really totally lets the child dictate everything, but also
My sister has that going on. It doesn't work well.
Your sister is a permissive parent? Yeah.
And it doesn't work well.
It doesn't work well because kids, as much as kids respond to boundaries, and they feel safe when they have boundaries. The problem that we run into in learning about how to set boundaries is, when am I being like a boss kind of person, and when am I being more like a consultant kind of person? When am I doing this, providing this boundary for you because I love you, and when am I doing this because I told you so? So there's a difference. There's a total difference. So this authoritative parent is the one that is assertive, that sets boundaries, that communicates love to the child, but in a way that the child feels safe. So the parent's in control, but a lot of power actually goes to the child. Jay's actually trained in the love and logic method, which really provides the child a lot of choice. So the parent's in charge, but the child has a choice. Do you want to hold this hand or this hand? Guess who has all the power in that situation? The parent still has all the power, but the child thinks he has all the power, and that's the perfect setup. Because you want to give your child that empowerment and that sense of that they have some control over things. But really, all they're deciding is on safe or safe. And that's then you're all fine. You're going to want to read this book or this book. It doesn't matter to you which book they read. Do you want to wear this outfit or this outfit? it doesn't matter. So sometimes we choose to fight battles, and this is as I thought about like generations, sometimes we choose to fight battles that are totally unnecessary anyway. Who really cares how your child chooses to parent, or, you know, that, so let's get into some conflict resolution. Then I'm gonna let these moms tell you a little bit about their perspective. So I was trying to think of some like 4 major nuggets for managing conflict. So this can be conflict either direction, really. So parent to child, child to parent. So we're talking about parent to child, like grandma to mother, or mother to grandma, or could be grandfather too. Most conflict tends to be in between us as women. That's a bummer, isn't it? We don't love each other enough. We tell each other what to do. So when I was actually having a lot of conflict with my mom, one of my best friends, who's a counselor, she's a chaplain actually, she said, show gratitude, say thanks. So you're not saying, thanks for telling me what to do. You're recognizing why the person is telling you what to do, and you're recognizing that the motive for that is that she loves you, she cares for you, she loves your family, she's concerned about your children. So thank you for telling me. Be assertive. Assertive does not mean rude or demeaning or condescending. Assertive just means you are a valuable enough person to state your case. And what you have to say is valid. So you as a parent are entitled to parent the way you want to parent. You as the grandparent are not entitled to parent the grandchild, unless you are parenting the grandchild. In that situation, then you are the parent. So we're not going to blur those lines. We're talking about a situation where we do have a grandparent and a parent and a child. Stay objective. You know, so many of our problems come because we just lose control and we forget, we let ourselves let our emotions control our response. If we just objectively think about, why did that person tell me that? Or what did that person say? Then there's no emotion in it, and it doesn't escalate into a big problem. And then the last one is figure out your record player line. So parents have to do this all the time to their kids. That's interesting. I heard you say that yesterday. I'm glad that worked for you. You know, whatever it is that your record player line is, but what the record player line does, it just stops it. It totally nips it. And if you've got a parent, I don't know if y'all have parents in the child care who are complaining to you guys about what you do when their child's at child care, you use your record player line for them. Thanks for expressing your opinion. They say that. Don't you hear me? I don't do it. Thanks for expressing your opinion. Thanks for expressing your opinion. And then all of a sudden it goes away, you know? So then when I was thinking about, okay, show gratitude. How do we show gratitude? Thank you for thinking about us. I know you want the best for our family. I appreciate you sharing your opinion. None of that is saying that I'm going to do what you're telling me to do. It's just choosing to be thankful. Choose to be grateful. And I'm going to let y'all kind of come up with lines that work for you too. And these, be assertive. So thank you for telling us how it worked for you. Our family has decided to. At our child care center, we take a nap at 11:30. I mean, you know, so there's no good or bad. There's no value judgment on any of this. It's all just a statement. For him, it seems best if we blank. So then you're saying for him. So you're saying for my child, because I know and I love my child, and I know that when he's overstimulated, then he sleeps worse. So child's going over to the grandparents' house to stay for the day. Well, for him, it really works best if you keep a predictable schedule. I mean, ultimately, whoever's in charge kind of has the authority at that moment, but you can also be assertive and say, for him it really works best. Maybe because it's for what's best for the child, then the other party will do that. For our family, we get along well when blank. We get along well when we eat dinner together. We get along well when we read a book before we take a nap. We get along well when it doesn't matter. And so then I was thinking about you guys as child care providers. Our center abides by state regulations. Here we need to blank. Because there's a lot of a difference in opinion in child care too of, well, a parent is coming in wanting very individualized attention to their child. That doesn't work in a child care setting. So this is you being assertive enough to say, in our center, this is how it works. There's still no good or bad for that. You can even say, thanks for telling me how you do it at home. For our center, this is what we do. Can you see that there's no value judgment to any of this? So the more you downplay emotion, the more it doesn't escalate into a big problem. So this is that kind of repeating the same theme. Be objective. So reacting like a situation is a personal attack, creates a power struggle. As soon as you react emotionally, you begin to create a divide. It's my way or your way. So just don't react that way. Think about what was said. So there's something in actual therapy called a cognitive distortion. So cognitive is how we think, and distorting means how we mess up. So when we think about something, how we mess up what is said. So we have to step back and say, okay, what was said? Let's say what was said. If you would give him a binky, he would calm down. Right? Could be said. What did you hear? So that means how did you interpret it? So I interpreted that as, what did you say?
You're not doing it right.
You're not doing it right. Exactly. But is that what was said? It's not what was said. But that's the way we interpret it. So then, we have to process all these things. So what was really meant? What was meant was, you give him a binky, sucking. Maybe what was meant is sucking is a reflex. Sucking helps babies calm down. So maybe if your baby were sucking, the baby would be able to go to sleep better. So the hearer has to figure all these things out. So what was said, how did I interpret it, and what was really meant. Might have been meant that, yeah, I'm going to tell you what to do, but it might not have been that. And if I choose not to make it that, I'm going to choose not to escalate into anything. Our record player lines. What did you say yours was?
I'll look that up.
I'll look that up. So Aubrey says her record player line is, I'll look that up.
Or I'll look more into that.
I'll look into that. Yeah, I'll look into that.
That's interesting.
That's interesting.
Is that?
Is that right? I like that.
Yeah.
I can tell you love us. I mean, he's such a curious boy. That's a little bit of a value to me. You put some, but really saying he's all over the place. I can't understand. He's climbing everywhere. He is so curious. He's really right. I am. That doesn't work for us. It doesn't. There once again, there's no good or bad. Like good